Depending on the week ahead of me, it could be anywhere from a 50-50 split, meaning I'm half in the office and half in the kitchen, to I would say a 30-70, where 30% I'm in the office and 70% in the kitchen. And I would say the weeks where I'm more in the kitchen, those are usually busier weeks.
The Job Guppy podcast is on a mission to help career explorers and job seekers find out from real people what a specific career or job is really like on a day-to-day basis. Join me, your host, Chris Hodges, as we dive in and explore jobs with each guest. You'll hear from experienced working professionals with transparent, realistic, and job-specific insight about their daily roles and their career journey. We go on to explore other topics like job search recommendations and income and salaries. You'll hear answers to questions like, do I need to go to college for this job? How much college? What is your work-life balance like? What do you like or dislike, or what would you do different? And if you don't like what you hear about one job role, we discuss alternative job titles to explore related to the same industry. And my favorite part is the end, where the guest shares their inspirational insight and recommendations for the next person wanting to get started on their career journey. And I hope you brought your appetite for this episode. Chef Nick is our guest today. He is the resident chef for cooking classes conducted by Sur La Table. We also have a culinary student joining us who has some questions of her own for Chef Nick. While we all think we know what it's like to be in a kitchen just because we've seen the cooking and baking shows, competitions, and glamorous movies, Chef Nick breaks down what it's really like, starting as a dishwasher at 17, or as the French call them, a steward. He worked his way up to resident chef by always asking what more can he do to help and learning from his mistakes. His career has taken him through traveling and working in kitchens in the hotel industry, on to fine dining, and now to his current position as resident chef at Sur La Table. He gives great advice not just for the aspiring chefs, but for anyone aspiring to advance in their career by recommending to always offer to do more than asked. Pay it forward by doing something for the next person coming in after you, and look for places to work where they're willing to teach you. And just to set expectations for working in the kitchen, in Chef Nick's own words, perfection is the standard, not the goal. I'm thinking that may be a good name for a restaurant if he ever decides to open one himself.
My personal background does have a majority of years spent in hotels. And why I bring that up, hotels are very multifaceted, meaning that there's room service, there's the restaurant, there's banquets, there's catering. So that's why I spent a lot of years in hotels, because I liked how multifaceted, how many different options you can do that within. I have a few years in fine dining. I've done some fine dining down in Houston, Texas. I've worked there for a number of years. Great restaurants, wonderful time. And now currently for almost a decade, I've been teaching classes, and that's been my new passion.
Great. Arcadia, anything to add?
No, we'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. So typically when I talk to folks is I go out and I Google, I pretend like I'm somebody just getting into it or I'm wanting to know more. So I go Google what I can find. I didn't do that in this case because it was Chef Nick. There's so many movies, shows, there's such a stereotype around it that I didn't feel like I needed to go and Google what does a chef do? Like we're over inundated with all the competitions and cooking shows and they're great and we love them all. So It's always touted as such a glamorous lifestyle and, kind of depends on where you're at in the food chain. So anyway, if somebody was walking with you, you got your degree, you went through your career path, you are where you are today at Sur La Table. So that being said, if somebody was to decide that's what they wanted to do, what would that be like if they were working with you? Kind of just walk us through your day, if you could, week, how does that roll?
Sure thing. Yeah. So we'll start with kind of day and then maybe move into week. So as far as the day goes, and most any kitchen, your first priority is time sensitive items. If we need something to be delivered, or we need something in stock, or we need something to think about in the next 3 days, that's really the first step. So I walk into work. My first step is to determine what's going on in the next 72 hours. Some restaurants back to specifically at Sur La Table, whenever I'm there, we have a structure where we teach cooking classes open to the public. There is no prerequisite. Any person, any Joe, Susan, and whoever wants to comes in, they can take a cooking class, and we offer that. So what I need to make sure of as being the resident chef is that two major aspects being that the food for the said cooking class is already in the store, ready to be prepared. And the second aspect is that I have staff or a chef or myself there to be able to teach, instruct the class, go through all the aspects of that class. So walking in the morning, my first thoughts are for the next 72 hours, for the next 3 days, do we have the food we need? Do we have the people on staff? Are they available? Is that ready? After that, then we get into more defined aspects of that, meaning, well, how many people are going to come in? Because if I have just a Tuesday afternoon and there's only 5 people, I really don't need that much food. I don't need that much staff. If it's a Saturday night, I need to have abundance of food and I need to have abundance of staff. So that comes into the fine tuning. Once you've done this enough, the first time you approach it, just like riding a bike, you have no idea. But once you've done it enough times, you have a good idea and you can make judgment calls. And that's what a lot of it comes down to is judgment. It's really about how much, yes, you can count for individual aspects and every person needs this specific many ounces or whatever it may be. But, there's all kinds of fluctuations. Some people eat more, some people eat less, there's all kinds of things that go into that. So, using your better judgment to determine what do we have enough for the next couple of days. And why I say the next couple of days, if you're really wanting to be successful in the role as a chef and at Sur La Table, you have to really kind of plan accordingly because there's a lot of other facets that need to happen within those days. So if I can make sure for the next 3 days we're safe, well, the rest of today and then even tomorrow, I can handle a lot of things like budgeting my numbers, making sure the food costs. So I need to have food, but I also need to make sure that the money I'm spending on food is appropriately spent as well as appropriately budgeted. Same thing goes into my labor. I would love to have everybody on staff all the time because I love the people I work with. It's very fun, in a kitchen. It's a very, very close-knit community. There is some kind of, grouping, sectioning that happens. You have certain groups develop like any group of people. But for most part, working in a kitchen, it is a very close environment, small space. There's a lot of sharing. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of handing things off to other people. Well, I did my part. Here's your part. You expect me to do my part and I expect you to do your part. We really just, that's a underlying thought. We don't even think anything else besides that. But again, making sure that all the other little details, and as a chef, once you get further and further up the chain, I've learned and I've seen is that you do a lot less cooking and you do a lot more office work being, well, let's start planning the next menu. Let's start working on next month's ideas. Let's start working on, looking at menus being a prime example. And at Sur La Table, we have the ability, if something is not making sense, meaning, and really coming down to, if it's not making money, we need to get rid of that. Let's change it. Let's figure out something we can put in place. And a lot of times we're trying to use similar ingredients. I want to keep what I have already available to me. I just need to put a different twist or spin on it. So again, walking in the door, making sure everything for the next 3 days is covered, and then knocking out little tasks. A big person, and I enjoy the chefs that I've learned from and some of the amazing chefs I've worked with, is that they are very hands-on. They're walking around the kitchen. They're making sure that, okay, I know I have the food, but let's see the food that we have. Just because I click a button, just because I pick up a phone and call it in, that doesn't determine the quality or, necessarily the amount. They may have only had 2 pounds and I needed 10 pounds. So making sure that you're visibly looking at things, looking at it, being hands-on, getting down and dirty, checking even so little. And I've seen with other chefs is that looking at the detail of the equipment we're using. Is the equipment up to par? Things have a lifespan. If we use something and it's generated enough, it created enough value in itself, is it still up to par? Is it still good quality? Things do have to be replaced, but making sure that everything is safe. And then another thing or thought to keep in mind is that making sure we're adhering to guidelines set by counties and by the state, being like the health department and health codes, because those are things that can definitely affect us on a daily basis. So just because I have the food, just because I have the staff, are they adhering to the local ordinances and codes that are that apply to us through these states and through the counties? That making sure that even though I may have the formula and the recipe all makes sense, I have A, I have B, sometimes it doesn't equal C, and we have to kind of find out. That's a good chef, is making sure, hey, is everything ready and is it in place and is it good to use? So with all that, the last thing, and I would say, is just having fun. I know it sounds as silly as can be, but having fun, meaning that we, and when I say we, a person working in a kitchen, whether they be a chef, whether they be a line cook, whether they be a prep cook, we are responsible for feeding people, and that is an absolute necessity to life. You do need to eat. So I find some joy in that, meaning that it's kind of fun me knowing that I have an important role, whether it be in my life, whether it be in another person's life. That it is important that we eat, and we could either eat something just to eat, or we can eat something that makes us happy. And if I'm happy and I'm cooking food, I feel like the food makes people happy.
To you, Arcadia, hearing him say all that, I know you're in a few semesters into your culinary program at school. Any of that a surprise to you at this point? Have you already been exposed to some of these extra responsibilities? It's not just walking in the kitchen and starting to cook, all the extra stuff that's there too on the responsibility level?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, one thing when you're talking about costing, we practiced that my last semester. For our final, we had to create a menu and then, like, write down and draw out every item on that menu and cost out every recipe on that menu, which is a whole nother thing that I was like, another thing that I didn't know went into culinary and the industry itself. And we even got the opportunity to cater to this banquet, and we made the food and served it. So you're talking about how you had some experience in fine dining. Me a little bit too. So yeah, I definitely agree in all that stuff of like talking about preparing. I feel like a big thing in like culinary and even pastry is like preparation. A lot of work is just preparing for, the big cooking times and stuff like that. So
Yeah. And I guess when I see the cooking shows, stuff like that, I can't think of any, like they always just start in the kitchen. Everybody's at the stove or oven. They're ready to go. Their ingredients are laid out, or they got everything in a room and they can go grab what they want. So tell me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of any where they've kind of done it behind the scenes where like, hey, you're not, I guess they got the ones where they turn the restaurant around or not, some of those shows where that, I guess, comes into play, but they still don't show the money side of it, the finance side of it, where's the margin on the foods? They don't show all of that. They kind of just go through and say, here, I'm going to help you remodel, give you a lot of money. We're going to remodel. We're going to turn this around, and it's going to be a great episode. So I can't think of one where maybe they have a competition that says who's going to be the richest chef by the end. Like everybody, you got to go figure out your own ingredients. We're going to have a cook-off, and at the end of the season, let's see who's got the most money, left over. I don't know. But Arcadia, you touched on something, and one of the things I'm trying to come through on this, you didn't know about that stuff before you got in the program and started taking classes. And in your case, it sounds like you're okay with that, but that might turn some people off, and they might have already been a semester or two into it before they realized, I don't like this. Like I thought I was just going to walk in the kitchen and start, making something, and didn't know I was going to have to work with numbers and ounces and converting grams and stuff like that. Or some of the stuff you talked about, Chef Nick, having to like figure out what's working, what's not working, make changes. It's dynamic, it's fluid. What worked last week ain't going to work next week. You got to look ahead, your head count. To me, it sounds like a lot. I mean, it's a moving target all the time, and you have to be comfortable. Some might say with that level of chaos is actually your normal, so to speak.
And everyone always expects you to be perfect. A lot of times you may have an off day, or something may not be perfect, but if I go to a restaurant and I order food and they don't deliver it how I ordered it, I usually say, hey, what's going on? How come this is not perfect? And a lot of times perfection is something that a lot of people say it's not obtainable or it's not possible. But I would say with food, and especially like with restaurants, even fast food, take it as something as simple as fast food. If I go to a fast food restaurant, I order something and it's not the way I ordered it, I say, hey, why is this not the way I ordered it? Perfection is a lot of times expected, and you said it, it's a moving target.
Yeah. So how much time would you say in all your preparation, you're having to look at budgets, plan ahead, how much time would you contrast that kind of stuff with actually getting to do the fun part of being with your group, in the kitchen, you're your family, getting to do your thing in your environment, like what you really like to do? How much of that compares with all the other administrative type stuff, would you say?
As my role as resident chef, it can vary. There are some days where I have a lot more time in the office than I want. I didn't get when I started working in the kitchen and when I started going through school, I didn't expect it to be a sit down at the desk office job. I thought it was a chef. And even, nowadays there's a lot more media available, whether it be shows, movies, blogs, all that stuff about working in kitchens. And you see that there's always you're in the kitchen, you're in the
Right.
kitchen, you're in your chef coat, you're cooking, you're stirring, you're wiping the sweat off your face because it's just so busy.
That's the exciting part, the glamorous part. Like, I want to be that guy,
There's not many videos or movies about the person sitting down, having everything ready to go and getting things organized and talking with vendors and saying, hey, why is the price of avocados drastically gone up? And this is affecting my business. But as far as percentages go, I would say depending on the week ahead of me, it can be anywhere from a 50-50 split, meaning I'm half in the office and half in the kitchen, to I would say a 30-70, where 30% I'm in the office and 70% in the kitchen. And I would say the weeks where I'm more in the kitchen, those are usually busier weeks, whether they be a holiday, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, Easter Sunday. Usually a lot of the times when we have busier holidays, and I just use holidays for example, but even a Friday night, even a Saturday night, if we have a group that has bought out our kitchen and they want to do an event in our kitchen, I may need to say, well, I got a lot of desserts that need to be made ahead of time, and I got a lot of bread that I need to at least get the dough made so I can proof. So that way, by the time we get ready to bake it, I don't have to sit for an hour and a half to watch it proof to bake. Even other things as measuring ingredients out. My specific role and my job, we teach cooking classes. So there's some times where I may not be handling food as much, but I'm measuring and divvying up food. So when my students come in, when the guests come in, and they're here to learn how to make French onion soup, well, they have their onions, they have the broth, they have their thyme, they have their bouquet garni, they have their salt pepper measured out, and whatever it may be, and they're doing the chopping, they're doing the stirring, they're adding in the wine, they're adding in all
they're
the
getting
stuff.
they're getting to live the movie version.
They live the glamour. Yeah, that's really what I like. Going back to that again, I would say on a busy week, I may be half in the office, half in the kitchen, and I'm really looking forward to that 50% in the kitchen, because a lot of the office work isn't the fun. It's sitting at the desk, typing numbers, making sure the numbers make sense, reaching out to people. A role that I have is I'm also trying to generate income, to create relations with people. If somebody may email me or email the store and say, hey, I have a birthday coming up, do you guys offer birthday events? And I have to reply, and I give them my spiel saying, yes, please, we have events. If you book this many people, we'll give you this special rate and things like that. So that goes into coordinating. But also, again, making sure that the food is coming from a verified source and that it's available easily. Then the weeks where it's fun for me are the harder weeks usually, where I don't have as much time in the office. I need to be in the kitchen. I need to be preparing food. I need to make sure that instead of, having a normal day where we need to make 75 desserts for that day, I need to make 110 because I know today and tomorrow we just so happen to have the same dessert, and I can prep them ahead of time, or those things. Or we have a busy weekend where I know we're going to I have to produce more amounts versus having to do normal Tuesday. This Friday, it may just be the same menus or the same concepts, but Friday we have a lot more people. So I just have to work harder at the same item.
Okay.
So I would say that's where I'm at.
When did you know, or what was it, that drew you to it? Or when did you know this is what you wanted to do? Was it just a straight up, let me jump into it? Or you kind of had to navigate and meander around till you found it? Like, how did you know this was what you wanted to do? And when did that kind of come to you?
I can say I am lucky enough that I had a bit of a troubled childhood. Don't have to go too much detail, but I came from a big family. I have 6 brothers and sisters, so I'm one of 7. And growing up, I didn't have a lot of direction. High school wasn't necessarily interested in anything, didn't have a care, wasn't really drawn towards certain aspects of careers or things, didn't know what I wanted to do. Last year of high school, had no idea what I wanted to do in life. Then get into college, and going through my basics. Just again, they made me pick a degree. I just said business. Again, first year of college. What do you want to do for college? I said business. I want to do in business. But immediately said, hey, I need some money. I need to make some money. I need to get a job. And a very easy job to get. You can work in numerous restaurants or food service, because a lot of times if you can deal with people, you can be a wait staff. You can work as a bartender. You can work as a host of waiters, waitress, whatever you want. If you don't want to deal with people, you can wash dishes. You can be a bar back. Depending on your skill level, you may be able to be a prep of food. So there's a lot of stuff. It's a very open access. You don't have to have a lot of skill, and that's what I did. So I got into the kitchen. I started as a dishwasher. I, at the young age, got a lot of tattoos. I have all my hands tattooed. By the time I was 18, I had all my fingers tattooed.
Let's see your hands, Arcadia.
So that really.
How's your hands, Arcadia?
But that really did limited options for me. When I started working in kitchens, I didn't have as many tattoos as I do now, but I kept getting more. I like tattoos. I have an older sister who helped raise me, my oldest sister, and she had tattoos, and I have cousins and other family members who have tattoos. So I didn't think that I would ever have this many, and I've grown fond of them. But, I thought it was a norm. You get older, you get tattoos, whatever it may be. And I just liked them so much, I kept getting them. But I got them in places that weren't really ideal for me to get a job in an office or get a job. A lot of times what people think about facing people, or, front facing people, I'm not considered the stereotypical person who's front facing people. But with that, I just saw that I worked in this kitchen. It was a hotel, actually, to be specific. It was a Marriott location. And there was just this energy. If you came in and you walk in the door and you hear laughing, you hear shouting, you also hear things dropping and banging. There's these all completely different aspects. People are interacting with different people. Different people are I can have a conversation with you and Arcadia at the same time on different parts of the kitchen, and I may be serious with you, and I may be telling her a joke. Again, there's a lot of different things going on at the same time. And as soon as I walked in, and as a role as a dishwasher, I was a dishwasher at 17 years old. I joined, and I said, man, this is exciting. I don't know. I kind of wanted to almost deconstruct it and figure out what's happening. I don't even know what's happening.
You just felt it like it's in the air, huh? It resonated with you, I guess. That resonated with you.
100%. And I did that for about a year, almost a year. And I was bugging the chefs every day saying, hey, just paraphrasing, I want to do more. I don't want to wash dishes. I want to do something else. Let me join in. Let me help you. I don't care if it's washing lettuce. Let me do something. I just want to do something, please. So finally I said, all right, here's your chance. Do it. And I was just so excited, and I never turned back. My attitude was always, give me more. What can I do extra? Here's a task. Here's a task for today. Great. Is there anything extra I need to be aware of? Is there anything I need to know about? And I did that for so long that whenever that ability, whenever those roles, or whenever that need for a person came up, my name was brought up, because they said, hey, this person wants more work. Let's give them more work.
Okay. Yeah, good. I have one saying I have kind of close to that is, you can make it happen or let it happen. And the make it happens, it usually happens better that way than the let it happens. So you kind of put yourself out there. I would say too, as a manager at times, or just in my own experience, the speaking up is a big deal. I work with a lot of people, and it's almost sad sometimes that there's a lot of good people out there, and I don't mean speak up like, look at me, look what I'm doing, but the ability to communicate, to be able to voice what your goals are, like let people know this is what I would like to do. Don't just assume people know it, or they think everybody wants to do something more, like not a squeaky wheel, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's usually goes more with whining and stuff like that. But I found just in all my relationships and my work relationships with my managers, I've always let them know what my goals were, where I was, that I'm open, to opportunity. I'm willing to work for it, and like you, Chef Nick, when there was a opportunity, it was up to me to, succeed or fail, but they gave me a chance on it because they knew I was, looking for more. But it took me speaking, talking, sharing my desire for it. That'd be my advice to you, Arcadian. That some of that, however much you want, vocalize it, and have relationships, communicate it well. That will usually help you sometimes stand out over others who may not do that. So you've touched along your career path. That's kind of one of the questions I was going to talk about next, and your different fine dining and hotel. Is there anything else, kind of a specific walkthrough you want to go through there, or we can, you feel like you've covered that enough and gave enough information there? We can move on.
I worked for Marriott for years. Through Marriott, I was able to get onto through Remington, I was getting on a team known as Task Force. And Task Force was if they acquired new property or if something fell under the umbrella, a lot of times, they want to send current employees who are good at their role to this new location, to this new property. And they say, hey, my job working task force would be coming into the location and saying, hey, how are you guys doing currently? How are things being run? What's the food costs? How are the labors running? Like, how are things being handled? And is it to the liking of what we've just, is this property going to fit in with what we have? Or do we need to come in and maybe do even more, more in-depth effort of getting this property better on task or better on track? And then as far as that goes, I did that for years and I loved it. Then I got into fine dining. Working in fine dining was completely different than anything I'd ever done before. That was a lot more attention to detail. That was every single plate having to be identical. Not even looking close. I mean, identical. So doing that, having every single detail, meticulous detail, ensure that you're responsible. And I'm just a line cook. I'm getting paid $12 an hour, and I need to be at the standard of a chef whose name is on the restaurant. I need to be his standard. That was a complete wake up, and I fell in love with that. That was a different task. That was a different monster. Nature of a beast was I need to be the best at all times, and I cannot be second best. I cannot be third best. You need to be the best, because if guests are walking in and they're expecting, and social media has made that even bigger nowadays, that if there is this preconceived notion of this is what an item is, it has to be delivered.
So, Arcadia, like hearing all that, where's your mind right now? Is anything, I guess, Chef Nick has went over so far resonated with you yet? Like he's talked about fine dining or hotels or the teaching aspect of it. Like, do you have any insight into where you think you want to get started?
Honestly, as of right now, I don't know specifically like where I want to go, because it is super open. Like you said, he's done so much already in, the time of being in his career and being out in the world. And I feel like I'm kind of like you, like I am very open and I'm very excited. Like you said, I love to be in the kitchen. I love to do whatever and to always learn, because like you said, there's always something you can learn new and become better with. So, I mean, hearing all this, it's just making me even more excited to get out into everything and just see where I can go and where all the opportunities, are going to lead me in this career. So,
Nick, is there anything that you think people would be surprised to know about your job?
I would say just something that maybe not a lot of people know is it is hard work. I mean, it's not, I won't compare it to working outside in the sun, but you are standing over a stove, you're standing over fire, you're standing in front of an oven, you're standing. I reiterate that because you're standing for hours upon hours. There is a good amount of possible injury happening. I mean, we're working with fire, we're working with knives. Accidents do happen. There's days where I have a perfect day and everything goes well. And there's other days where within the first 10 minutes of work, I burn and cut myself. And I'm just like, oh man, this is going to be the worst day ever, because now I'm wearing a Band-Aid and I got a glove on, and my hand, or, wherever I burned it is now sensitive to heat. So every time I put my hand in the oven, it feels, or every time I put my hand to, get some water, it's sensitive, it's tender. So there are a lot of little details that do affect us. And, touching on something I said earlier, perfection is, I was told this by an amazing chef I worked with. He said, perfection is not the goal, it's the standard. So that would be one aspect. Okay. And I would also say probably there is a lot of videos, movies, TV shows about the wild party craziness going on. That does exist, but not in every kitchen. The other kitchens, there's ones that are very, very tight. I've worked with some kitchens with very strict chefs where even, a lot of times we think of music, I can listen to music or I can play headphones. There were some kitchens where I worked and music was not allowed. It was, there was a need required because at any point there would need to be communication going on or it was very strict in that, your station had to be clean, so there's a wide range of possibilities, like, many occupations. You could be doing a number of things.
So your work-life balance in your role at Sur La Table?
As a chef, and I've seen it with other chefs, it's tough. I mean, everyone, it exists, but I would not say to an extent of of a normalcy. Because one great example I give, and this is something that everyone should know if they're ever interested in working in the kitchen, if they ever think they want to go down this route, every Mother's Day, every major holiday, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every New Year's Eve, every Labor Day weekend, a lot of times, whatever your birthday is, there's something going on at that time. So when I think of work-life balance, I think of an overall, meaning that on a weekly basis, as 7 days in a week on a weekly basis, am I spending enough time on me, and also me being my wife and my family, whatever it may be. On a weekly basis, I do my best, and it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But whenever holidays come around, my wife knows that Thanksgiving, it's tough to see me that week. Christmas, if depending on the season and depending what's going on, Christmas, it may be tough to see me that week. So work-life balance, it exists, but I mean,
it's a little different than your normal.
Going into the industry, if you think, hey, I want weekends off, I want to get off of work before the sun goes down, I want to have a Friday where I can go out with my friends. It's possible, but it's not ordinary.
Okay, Arcadia, is that a concept you've thought about, or has that crossed your mind at all, or is this kind of new to you hearing it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I work in a bakery, so I definitely know that like holidays and stuff like that, it's the most busiest times because you gotta get the product out. That's when you're gonna have your most customers. You're just constantly working a lot more than just normal time. So
okay, I waited tables in college for a little over 3 years. It's actually where I met my wife, waiting tables. But so I'm very fond of the restaurant industry for that. But I actually didn't like that. Weekends, the busiest time, when everybody was starting to relax and enjoy their evening was when I was getting busy. The days with the prettiest sunsets, I couldn't go enjoy. The busy weekends, like, what do I want to do Saturday? Nope. Sorry, got to go to work. It still bugged me enough that I remember it to this day.
Going just to touch base on work-life balance, you have to create a normalcy. Mm-hmm. My wife and I love it. She works in kitchens as well. That's how I met her. And, we, for the most part, don't expect to have a Saturday off. We don't. But if we get a Tuesday off, we're going to enjoy the Tuesday like it's a Saturday. We are. That's the way we talk.
That's great.
So this is our Saturday, and this is what we're going to do. And again, just creating normalcy.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of move away from a lot of that now. I'm going to bring up income, and we can get as specific as you like, or we can be generic as you like. I do like to bring it up if you would like to, share anything at all, or your experience of different positions, or do you do it for the money? Do you do it for the love of cooking? What roles have been better or not? Or Katie, if you have any questions, about, lifestyle in this, or, things like that, or guidance you might be looking for, this might be a time to bring some of that up. But we all like to work because we like to do something we like to do. But at the end of the day, we like to make money too, and go have that Tuesday at that restaurant. Where you got the restaurant to yourself, so you got to pay for that somehow. But on that side of things, Chef Nick, anything you'd like to share there, just for somebody getting into it, thinking about it, ways to maximize potential, or things they should be aware of.
Give yourself time. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, 17 years, almost 20 years. And I'm in a point in my career where I'm comfortable, I'm happy, I enjoy my life. I have the ability to not worry, it's a tight month or whatever it may be. But that came with years of hard work, years of dedication, years of being being the earliest person at work and staying a little bit later than other people. But if you find, and again, I don't want to keep repeating myself. You find the right outlet. Is it a restaurant? Is it a hotel? Is it a bakery? Is it a convention center? There's a lot of, if you asked me in the beginning of my career, would I be teaching cooking classes? I wouldn't say I don't want to work in a kitchen to teach cooking class. I want to work in a kitchen to make food. But it's something that I found that ignites. Now, I will say, chefs, you're never going to make the most money. I don't see, and this is something else to share. There's not a lot of chefs per restaurant. A restaurant may have 3 chefs, and a restaurant may have 1 chef. So, once you work up to the chef or the chef role, you are making comfortable money, but there may not be 3 chef roles at the place you're working at. So you may have to go to a place that has the ability for you to work your way up to chef, because that chef may be there for 10 years and they're going to be there for another 10 years, and they may not have any idea of leaving. So
you kind of have to be a little strategic there in your thought process, huh?
Yeah, because I love what I do. That gives me satisfaction. Whenever I get paid, that dollar amount gives me satisfaction as well. But I knew going in, and I still know that I'm not going to be the richest person in the world. But what I enjoy is that when I go to work in the morning, I would say I get a lot of instant gratification working in the kitchen, because I start with potatoes and I end up with croquettes. I start with carrots and I end up with soufflés, things like that. There's a lot of things going on where within a day, within showing up to work and within leaving, a lot has changed. You can make money in the industry. You can make, and especially if you're self-motivated. There's pop-ups, and I feel have been becoming a lot more normalized in the past 5 to 10 years. What is a pop-up? You get yourself, a license to produce food. You get yourself a little ability. You can either get a little food truck, or you can get a cart, or you can even rent out some kitchen spaces and prepare food there. And you can make your own food there, which again, I wouldn't say that was popularized 20 years ago when I first started. That wasn't a big idea. So, if you come up with a product, or you have an idea that you think is successful or can be successful, there are different means. You don't have to have a brick and mortar. You do not have to have a restaurant where I can say, I'm going to do my best to get chef to put this on the menu. There are other variables that a person can produce and perform. But I would say a chef, they can make good money, but it's not going to be fast easily. If you're not going to make it very fast in your career, and it's not going to be easy a job to get in the career.
Okay, thanks. You've covered a lot at different times. You've covered different job titles. You've named a few different positions. Could you maybe rattle off some different positions that might be around in a kitchen for somebody that said, maybe after listening to this, there's everything you've described. I don't know if I want to do exactly that, but I just know I like being in the kitchen. I want to be associated with it. I like that energy level. What would be some other positions that somebody could be in? And is there a career ladder to work your way up to chef?
So as far as ladder goes, there is usually, it's a chain. There's a hierarchy. There's a role there. My first title in my career was a steward. Steward is a fancy French way to say dishwasher. You don't say dishwasher, you say steward. So I started as a steward. From there, I worked up to prep cook. Prep cook, you're working with food, but you're not working with food that guests are receiving. I'm getting the lettuce, the tomatoes, the onion, the bell peppers, the celery, the carrots, whatever, the opening, washing the lentils, whatever it may be. I'm preparing products, but those products will be handled by somebody else before they're gone through me. So I don't have necessarily as much of attention to detail. It's not as important on the prep cook. So I went from steward to prep cook, from prep cook to line cook. The line cook is the one getting the items that may have been previously prepared and getting them ready for service, meaning that if you sit down in a restaurant and you order the salmon may be portioned, the sauce may be portioned, and I'm the one in charge of making it to the right temperature, to the right consistency, to the right texture, to the right XYZ, whatever it may be. So that way when it goes on the plate, the guest gets it and they're happy. From line cook, I took a detour. I would say from there, it most likely would be supervisor, a kitchen supervisor, or a lead line cook, or a kitchen position, something like that, of that nature. But the detour I took was purchaser. Purchaser because I was working in a hotel, and that led me to, there was another role of working in a hotel. We need lots of food. If we have a wedding of 600 people, we need to feed those 600 people. If they bought 600 people's worth of food, we need to have 600 people's worth of food. So purchaser was a specific role. And then there was also receiver, which was on the other end of that. So the purchaser would get with the chefs and they would say, hey, on Friday, how much ground beef do we need? How much lettuce do we need? How much onions do we need? How XYZ? And then they would go through the list and, okay, how many containers of, how many gallons of cream do we need? How many gallons of milk? How many dozens of eggs do we need? All that stuff. And then they would get it there way before the date line we needed. We need to have it ahead of time because it needs to be prepared. Then receiving was the other end. The receiver was the one, all the food coming in, making sure it's of standard, of quality. Is it prepared? Is it available for use? Is it stored properly? Is food, is it the refrigerators under proper temperature control? But I did that and then finally got my way to kitchen supervisor. So kitchen supervisor was where I was in the kitchen directly, but I had a little bit of each aspect. Some days I was doing everything I just talked about. I was working on the prep. I was working on the line, and then I was working to make sure we have food there. From supervisor, then usually you would make a chef jump to the chef, the patisserie chef, there are numerous different titles of entry level chefs. You can, depending on the restaurant, depending on the store you're working at, there may be different titles of chef. But again, then you get into chef, and that's where it gets into, you're starting to see a bigger picture. As a dishwasher, my job is this. As a line cook, my job is this. As a prep cook, my job is this. As a chef, my job is to make sure that the people around me are handling their task and that everything is organized. It's about a chain. Is this link connected to this link? Is this link connected to this link? Are they linked in synchronicity? Are things in place? So once you get to the title of chef, I would say that's when you're more concerned about the kitchen as a whole. I'm not concerned about, do I have enough salmon to finish tonight's dinner? Do I have enough steaks that are portioned out for tomorrow? Are there enough mashed potatoes to get me through the rest of tonight? Whatever it may be. As a chef, you're worried about all of that as well as tomorrow. And then as well as, is everybody doing things? Are things going out in timely manner? So making sure things are in order, that would be the first entry level chefs. And then as it goes up to chef, you're talking about sous chef. Some restaurants, some kitchens may have executive sous chef, and then there's finally the top of the chain would be the the executive chef, which sur la table they have twist on it. They call it a resident chef, but there are different titles on different locations. But then once you're that level, you're doing every job in the kitchen, meaning that you're ensuring that the food is there, the people are there, and they're working in harmony together.
Are there well-known schools, like a top 3 known in the industry kind of thing, or colleges? Or is it kind of, and do any of them guarantee you a golden ticket by going those routes? Or is it just kind of like anybody can succeed? I think you've already answered that anybody can succeed. It's more of maybe of just, if somebody was dead set on going through those and just wanted those credentials on the wall, or if there is like, if you go here, you're probably going to be golden if you do that. Is there anything like that you could speak to?
The first one comes in my mind would be CIA. So most people know CIA, but it's the Culinary Institute of America. They have numerous locations, but as far as what they ensure golden ticket, I don't think that exists, but I will say alumni, as far as like, previous alumni, they have won numerous awards. We have a lot of award-winning chefs coming from these schools. There are numerous other culinary schools. I went to a community college because I had a 4-year degree. I had already had my bachelor's degree from a major university. I didn't see fit to spend a lot of more money on a associate's or a certification, not necessarily a degree, depending on the degree. But with that, I chose a community college because I'd already had that degree. I'd already had the schooling. I was just going there because I was told this would be a good fit for me. And but with that said, Culinary Institute of America, it's not this is better than that. It's just that I know that if you look at some of the popular shows and some of the popular like chef's table, some of those will say, hey, I went to the school in New York City. I went to the school in XY City. I went to the school in California, different location. I don't think that they're better, but I think that, there are some more award-winning chefs coming from those schools.
So that's, I guess, a different, I hadn't thought of it from that angle, but, looking at like considered award-winning chefs, if you were saying you were looking for schools or programs, that would be like one way to search for it, I guess. Arcadia, what's your thoughts on the schooling? You're at Texas State Technical College. What are your thoughts on where you're going to go with school right now?
Going into once I decided what I wanted to do and everything like that, I wasn't honestly really sure. Like I didn't have like a dream school or like a top like culinary school I wanted to attend. That was just the most recommended one that was given to me, so I just went for it. And I've heard that it's honestly, yes, you can have XYZ, written down on paper, but a lot with this industry is just your skill and what you produce and who's going to see that and who's going to want that and take you in. So
Okay.
um yeah.
No, that's good. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it, where you were. So one of the next to last things I have is job searching. Are there sites known for the culinary industry?
One that I'm always associated with is Poached. Poached is a culinary term, as well as that's so Poached.com. That is only geared towards culinary listings. So if you're looking for specifically, if you're working in industry and you already have some experience and you only want that facet of roles, Poached is a wonderful asset. It's similar. I mean, it's similar to Indeed. I can't say there's a big difference, except for the only difference is it's not every job listing. It's only kitchen related job listing.
Okay.
Poached.
Okay. Any questions there, Arcadia? Kind of before we wrap up?
Yeah, I actually have a question. Do you wish you would have gone a route of like doing any sort of like culinary school, or are you like, I mean, you're pretty successful already, so I'm pretty sure.
I started culinary school with the idea that it would help me further my career because cur- I was currently working in a kitchen and I was just finished college, but my degree wasn't as necessarily tied to culinary itself. It was hotel and restaurant management. So that was my degree. So culinary school, amazing. I enjoyed it when I was there. I really enjoyed it. But the reason why I did culinary school was to help me further my career. And after 2 semesters of culinary school, I saw that if I continued doing what I was doing and still learning from chefs. Yes, granted, it's not in a class setting. I'm learning from the chefs I'm working with. I felt that it outweighed what I'd already currently amassed. I'd had a degree. I had a degree in management, which, eventually I wanted to manage and run a place. So I felt that culinary school was amazing, but for my career path, it didn't justify me sitting out another 2 to 3 more semesters to get where I wanted to be when I was already working in a kitchen.
Okay.
Did you ever experience or had a time where you felt as if you failed in any way? And if so, what did you do to like overcome that or sort of move on?
It's a great question.
100%. That exists. I'll start on small scale and go to big scale. So small scale meaning that I had to prepare a dinner service, and I was in charge. I've earned the title of chef. I'm still not the head chef, but I'm still working my way up. I'm coordinating with people, and I had to make sure this dinner service went well, and it did not go well. Things were late. Things were in not the right order. Things were not organized as they should have been because I'd never done that before. I've only done it a few times, one of the two. So yeah, that's failing on small scale. Failing on a large scale, I had actually worked for a restaurant that had to close down. And it wasn't anything that I personally did. It was just that the management, the people in charge, everybody running that restaurant, it just no longer had been profitable, or for a while it hadn't been profitable. And they finally said, we got to pull the plug on it. So, going through that and realizing as an employee, I thought things were fine and dandy. I thought everything was good. I thought everything was fine. But, hearing say, hey, we're going to close down. I thought, wow, like maybe my role I didn't do enough on my part. And then take it even further. Currently, my role, I'm responsible for meeting quotas as far as numbers go. I have to do so many classes. I have to sell so many seats in classes per month. We need to associate a dollar amount with those seats. I need to be within a certain amount of food costs. The specific example I can give is that, my food costs should be relatively within a range. It should be percentages of the range. And with that, it may not be able to be within that range, and I was past it. So I thought, man, I failed. But the best part is I got to come back next month and I got to be better than last month. You get another chance. With the kitchen, you get a lot of chances, and you can't keep making mistakes, but there's a room for error. Hey, I fell short this week. I fell short today. I fell short this month, but I just got to be better.
Okay. On that note, then we'll go ahead and go into what kind of inspiration would you tell yourself if you were telling the next person, the person getting into it, like Arcata or a young yourself, what would that be?
I'm lucky enough to actually have this happening in real life. So currently I have a member of my team. He is in culinary school, and he's working for our staff. He started as we have a role as a kitchen assistant. It's similar to a dishwasher, but entitles a little bit more. We are preparing food. We are handling food. It's a larger responsibility than a dishwasher. So it's a kitchen assistant. They assist the chef in teaching of the classes. This gentleman came into me. This was a year ago, about almost a year ago. He's been with me, and he's starting culinary school. I'm about to start culinary school. I'm currently working in the kitchen, but it's just a little small kitchen. There's not a lot of there's nothing to brag about it, if you would. And he says, "Hey, I just so happened to find you guys. It just so happened to walk in the door and say I'm looking for a job, and I hired him. And it just was one of a lucky thing that I've had. Another lucky thing in my career that I've had." But with all that said, so he's on my team now, and for the past year, he thinks maybe 10 months, I've actually been able to promote him, and he reminds me of myself a lot. He comes in, and it's a hey, what's on the task for the day? But then the next step is, what else do I have to do? And I would tell him that keep that up. Don't if there is a delegation, if there's a list, if there's something that's offered to you, finish that, and then you don't have to say I got to do everything. Don't you will get overwhelmed. You'll get over encompassed. It just will overtake you. But doing your best to say, hey, I can do just a little bit more. I can give a little bit more. I can learn a little bit more. That's really the biggest thing. Learning a little bit more, because being able to produce something is great, but being able to produce a lot of it, and while you're working with other facets, while you have other things going on, looking at a situation, learning from it, and then growing from it is a big thing. Find somebody who is willing to help. And there are some locations who won't be willing to help. There are some chefs who are saying, I got enough on my plate. I hired you to hire you. I didn't hire you to train you. I didn't hire you to teach you. I thought you knew it. With that, I would say, some places will have those chefs, and you just have to, it's a harder learning curve. You just have to learn faster, and you have to learn harder. And then there's other places where you can find somebody who can help you learn. And there's not a specific answer of how to get in that place or how to find that person. But it is a very, very, another great piece of advice I learned in the kitchen, and I've passed it on, is pay it forward. If there's something that you can do that would make somebody else's life easier, rather be a coworker, rather be the person picking it up after you, if you can pay it forward, and if everyone to kind of get on that concept of paying it forward, it would make everybody's job easier. If I can do something that where the person, when I leave and the person coming in next to me, if they have one thing done for them, yes, they may say thank you. But if I continually doing that, it may get to the point where when I come in tomorrow morning, that one person that night did one thing for me. And that may make my life just 5-10 minutes better. And, just continually doing that. So that's something that maybe not a lot of occupations have, but working in the kitchen, it is extremely small spaces. It's a lot of people, and you're expected to perform undoubtedly. It's not even hey, you're having an off day. Even if you're having an off day, you still have to perform.
I tend to agree with that. One of my things I think that have helped me, I look for it in other people I work with, is make your manager's job easier, or do something extra you don't have to do. Like in your case, it's probably a lot to get that help, knowing everything you all have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody just to do something very small probably helps you exponentially more than they realize. And then all those little things add up. So that's actually, like I would, cause y'all have such a community in the kitchen. Like so many people do things. It's like, if you're working by yourself, it may not matter. You're helping yourself tomorrow, get ahead, plan ahead. But when you're working with so many people, I could see where all of those little things would add up. And if everybody just did that. So great advice.
I had a blast. This is fun. I appreciate the opportunity. I really enjoy it. Yeah. If anything I said helps anybody out, I'm excited. I love that.
If you like what you hear and want to take the next steps in exploring your career after listening to an episode, go to jobguppy.com to see a summary and helpful links to things mentioned during the interview, like industry-specific forums or websites, example job searches, career ladders, and degree programs or trade school recommendations. The hope is you now have more information than you did before from the guest on the podcast to help you move forward with the next steps on your career exploration journey. Tune in each week as Job Guppy continues to explore a million jobs in the sea.